Hi, this is Joe Shannon. I'm a lawyer, a husband, a father of 6 kids, and I also host a podcast called Opening Statement with Joe Shannon. Please consider listening to our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, and any other folks that host podcasts. Just Google Joe Shannon and podcast, and you'll find it. I hope you enjoyed the show. We're here this morning with Bryan VanMeveren of Fort Collins, Colorado. How are you, Bryan?
I'm good, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Well, I tell you, I've been waiting for a while to talk to you because there's few folks that I really think are huge role models in this world, and one guy is this fella here. So we are lucky to have this cat on the line for half hour, maybe 45 minutes. But let me just give you guys a little bio here that will make for some interesting listening the next 30 to 45 minutes. First of all, Bryan is a trial attorney and owner of VanMeveren Law Group. When he's not busy with his professional life, his marriage of 30 years, his 6 children, coaching and active volunteer work, he loves training and competing in triathlons and endurance events. His resume includes 8 Kona qualifications, 5 70.3 worlds, 24 Ironman races, numerous podium finishes in the competitive Boulder and Fort Collins triathlon communities, and over 40 marathons and ultra-distance races to date. Wow. So, Bryan, you're in your 50s, right?
I am in my 50s. I'm right in the middle. Double nickels.
That's I think I'm 1 year older than you are, and I'm looking at this thing and I'm feeling pretty bad about myself. You got any therapy for me?
Well, that is my therapy. I don't know how I would survive without being able to get out there and compete. It really is therapeutic.
One of the things I really liked about, I used to be a competitive runner a long time ago, and I was reading about your training. It says that you focus on high quality, low volume training with an emphasis on nutrition, mental toughness, yoga, and Pilates. Is that right?
That's right.
So let's break that down a little bit here. So
Sure.
The one that hit me was the mental toughness aspect. So you're doing these, an Ironman, just for the listeners, what does an Ironman entail? What's the distances there?
Sure. The Ironman distance is the full distance triathlon, and it's comprised of a 2.4 mile swim, a 112 mile bike, and then a 26.2 mile run, or a marathon in effect. So it's 140.6 miles total.
So the swim's in a nice little pool, though, isn't it? It's like an easy pool swim.
Oh, I wish. No, the swim is open water, and depending on the day and the conditions, you can be in 50-degree water or 80-degree water, sometimes with a wetsuit, sometimes not. So that, in combination with 2,000 other folks clamoring around you, it can turn into kind of an underwater rugby match at times.
Wow. So tell us about your most recent triathlon.
Sure. My most recent triathlon was in Arizona, late November of last year. I had competed in Kona in October, had a rather rough day, and thought that was kind of the end of my season, and had an opportunity to get into the Arizona race on a charity slot, doing some volunteer work for Smile Train, an organization that helps children get surgeries for cleft palate. And so I kind of jumped in Arizona on a whim. I already had a good base of training, but not always a good idea to do back-to-back Ironman races. But I just have this drive to continue to try to improve, and really wanted to kind of redeem myself after a rough day in Kona. So I jumped into Arizona in late November and ended up having a great day and qualifying again to go back to Kona this October. So really pumped about that. Yeah.
That's great. So Bryan won't tell you, so I will. He is the #1 ranked Ironman all world in 2019. Is that true?
That is correct. There aren't many of us old guys left. So I think maybe I'm the last man standing. I don't know. But if you hang in there long enough, some good things will happen.
So is this for your age group then?
Yes, it's for my age group. It's a world ranking that Ironman does every year. You get points based upon your performances in Ironman races all over the world, and then at the end of the year, you get a final ranking based on your performances for that season. So yeah, I had a good year.
Wow. So let's back up a little bit. So Bryan, you're tell us, where you're born, your upbringing, that type of thing.
Oh boy. Well, I was born in Vermillion, South Dakota. My father was in the midst of law school at the time, and moved on to Colorado, where my mother was born and raised in Loveland, Colorado, and so we settled in northern Colorado. And my dad was the district attorney up in Larimer County here for 32 years, and so this was our home. My folks split when I was young, and so we bounced around a bit, but this was always home base. My dad was always here, but moved around quite a bit. Got to see a lot of the country with my mother, but Fort Collins has always been home base. And yeah, finished high school in Colorado and went on to get my undergraduate degree just north of here at the University of Wyoming, and then went to the University of South Dakota for law school.
Let me back up here a little bit. So you must have been just a stud athlete in high school, right?
I loved sports. I was one of those dumb jocks. I didn't really appreciate the importance of academics until law school. So yeah, I was always on the field, whether it be football, baseball, track, basketball. Basketball was my true passion when I was young, and track and field. I really enjoyed those areas. So yeah, I did okay. It kept me out of trouble, that's for sure.
Now, did you end up competing when you were at University of Wyoming?
I did, and I actually went my freshman year to the University of Northern Colorado to play basketball, and things just didn't pan out. I had a patellar tendon rupture my freshman year in my knee, and there were some coaching changes, and I ended up transferring to Wyoming to try to play there, but my knee just never really rehabbed the way it should have, to a point where I could put the force on it that you need to when you're playing basketball. So that kind of started the evolution to lower impact events like running and cycling and swimming.
Well, that's great. Yeah. So then let's figure this out. So a lot of kids, they, at least I see as being a coach for a long time, is if they don't make it in high school, or they don't make it, the teams in college or whatever, they think that their athletic career is over. And you must not got that memo.
No, I didn't. I always found sports to be a great outlet, and especially with the pressures of law school and starting a career, and then also having children in the mix. I think you need an outlet. You need to have something that you can go to that helps you keep things in focus and keep things prioritized appropriately. And so I have to say that the sports aspect of my life has always been there, and it's helped drive me to success in other areas of my life.
So you end up out there in Colorado. You get out of law school. What did you decide to do then?
Well, my undergraduate degree was in sports marketing, and I always had big dreams of representing professional athletes. And the more I learned about that and the challenges in that profession, the lack of ethics and a number of other things kind of prompted me to look at other options. And so I actually pulled up stakes. I had 2 young kids at the time, and we decided to move to Phoenix, Arizona, and just start fresh and do something new and different. So I had the blessing of getting some job offers in Phoenix in the insurance defense litigation world. So that's where I started my career.
So you ended up being, when I first started practicing law, I got out in 1988, and I started working for a law firm, and it happened to be that we represented big corporations and insurance companies. Then I did that for 4 more years when I came to Chicago. And so I spent about 8 years defending folks, big companies, doctors, drug manufacturers, auto manufacturers, product manufacturers, that type of thing. And that was pretty good training for me. Did you find the same type of approach?
100%. Yeah, I think our careers have really mirrored each other, Joe, because my first 8 years were in insurance defense litigation, defending hospitals and doctors, big construction companies, insurance companies, and really getting to dig in and learn the ins and outs of the insurance world and how to properly defend those cases. And it certainly gave me, and I'm sure you, a very inside track in terms of now representing our clients and the victims, because we know how the insurance companies operate, and we know how to deal with them effectively.
One of the things that I really learned a lot defending cases, and by the way, I have a ton of respect for the law firms I worked for. One of them was a firm called Dunn, Carney, Allen, Higgins, and Tongue in Portland, Oregon, and those lawyers are great. And then I worked for Siegel, McCambridge, Singer, and Mahoney in Chicago, and I still got great relationships with those folks, and they were really great. One of the things that I really learned was what is and what is not a good case.
Right.
Yeah, and so I the one thing that I've continued to try and do at our firm is to make sure that we only accept cases that have 100% merit, that we have a chance to really help out a client on, because I don't think it does anybody any favors to take a case that is not a good case, that is going to be disappointing to the client, and to give them false hope that that's not going to be a great case. Do you have the same way of looking at things, Bryan?
Absolutely, Joe. I agree with you 100%. You don't want to mislead anyone, and you need to be very candid with them in terms of the likelihood that they're going to succeed in their case. And so we're very upfront with people. Sometimes people don't want to hear that because they get a lot of misinformation, and everyone under the sun is telling them they need to get a lawyer and go sue somebody. And oftentimes that's not the best approach. We got so many calls years ago on minor cases that you just hope people could work out amongst themselves. And I wrote a book to try to help guide people, because I think there is a lot of misinformation out there, and you don't want to get involved in a case that's going to put your client in a worse position than they already are. And so if you can give them some guidance and mentorship, and we do that a lot, we'll continue to talk to folks that haven't hired us, because we want them to work things out, and we don't want to put them in a position where they're upside down or in a hole when they shouldn't have gotten involved in a case, or they didn't need a lawyer in the first place.
I did a little bit of background preparing for this interview, and one resource that's really great for all you folks out there in Colorado is Bryan's website, which is VanMeveren. That's VanMeveren law.com. That's VanMeveren law.com. It's got some great resources. You can pick up his book that he talked about, and then it's got some great. He's even got an app. Is that fresh off the shelf there, the app, or you've had that for a while?
We had one for a while, Joe. We just recently refreshed it, though. It's got a lot more information on it to help folks, and it's also got a direct chat line and a phone line where folks can contact us directly from the app. But we just kind of revived that and updated it, and so we're in the process of trying to get that out to all of our existing clients, and just another way to keep them in the loop. Our focus is always on service to our clients. That's our mission. It's not about getting all the glory or taking a bunch of cases to trial. It's really about just serving the clients fairly and properly. And the way to do that is really, constant communication, in my opinion, and developing those relationships. So it's just another relationship tool so folks can feel that they do have a true partnership with our firm and they can talk to us at any time.
Yeah, what I found successful in our firm is that we also focus on relationships, because, one of the things that you'll find with some businesses or law firms is basically that you're a transaction to them rather than just being a lifelong relationship. And, the thing is, with our firm, when people call us, they don't necessarily have, issues with respect to catastrophic injuries. Thank God. They've got other issues too. And, we can, peg them into our network of people that handle other stuff like wills and trusts and estates and all that type of stuff. And so, yeah, I like that approach. I really do. I think, one of the things that I kind of looked at a lot of different things other than your website, and I saw that your name pops up all over the place in Colorado, that you're legal counsel for multiple race directors, events, health clubs, the Larimer County Boys and Girls Club, and that you have a real big passion for helping out bicyclists.
That's right. That's definitely the passion here is we see a lot of really tragic cyclist collisions, crashes, accidents, what have you. And even though Colorado is a very biker-friendly community, folks just aren't paying attention in their vehicles. They're distracted by all kinds of things. And so we are trying to create even a greater awareness in Northern Colorado that, these cyclists are your friends, your parents, your children, and we need to have a better awareness of them on the roadways. So that's one thing that I certainly will go out of my way to do is help an injured cyclist, whether they have a case or not. Anything we can do to give them resources to get on the road of recovery and get them a new bike or whatever. We're big advocates for the cycling community here. We work closely with the CSU Triathlon Club, which is a great organization up here. There are a number of triathlon organizations that we work with and cycling groups we like to go speak to. And so, we just try to continue to promote that awareness here and get the word out that we've got to be paying attention to the roadways. We can't be distracted.
Tell us a little bit, switching gears a little bit, tell us a little bit about your family.
Sure. You got a couple hours?
Well, I know it's a long story, but let's start at the beginning there. I think there's somebody that's kind of the person that runs your house.
Yeah, the boss of the house, clearly my wife Eileen. She's my guardian angel, and we met in undergrad, and she has been amazing. Been there for me through thick and thin, and we started our marriage in the late 80s. It's hard to believe that, but so over 30. I think we're going on 31 years maybe. But had our first two children right in the midst of law school. My first, kind of funny story, my first daughter was born the night before my first year civil procedure final exam, about 4 a.m, and kind of came as a pleasant surprised about 2 weeks early. So I thought I was going to get through my law school finals and then we'd have this baby and everything would be fine. But anyway, she came right, Mackenzie, my oldest, came right in the midst of our first year of finals, which, as you know, Joe, is a rather stressful time in your life. Anyway, we survived that. Had another daughter in Vermillion, South Dakota, while I was finishing up law school, and then I started my career in Phoenix, and I had a few more children, another daughter and a son. I have 5 daughters and 1 son, and so after 4 kids and living in the big city in Phoenix, although I had a great career in insurance defense and with a really great firm, Jennings Strauss. It was just time to really focus on the family. And so that's when I just really shifted from a career emphasis to really family focus. And that's what brought us back to Northern Colorado. And then we've had 2 more children. So we've been back in Colorado for almost 20 years now. So our kids range from age 27 down to my youngest is 14. So yeah, it certainly keeps us young and motivated, and it drives me every day to do the very best I can.
So how far is the office from your house?
Well, I have 2 offices. I've got a south office, which is just minutes from our home. You'll be jealous. I don't even have to go through a stoplight, Joe, to get to my south office. So it takes me about 4 minutes. And then I work primarily in our downtown Fort Collins office, which is where I am kind of self-quarantined right now. So we've got 2 offices. That office is probably maybe a 15-minute drive on a bad day, 10 to 15-minute drive. So pretty blessed and fortunate to be able to have a short commute where I can run, or I can bike, or I can drive, depending on the day, into my offices.
How far are you from the slopes?
We are, from the good skiing, probably about 90 minutes to 2 hours. We have a couple of favorites. I'm a passionate skier. I worked as a ski patrolman right out of college. My wife was a few years behind me in school, so I had a couple of years to kind of have a little fun before she graduated, and worked at a big resort in Colorado as a lift operator, and then tried out and became a patrolman, took all the EMT testing, and really enjoyed the medicine aspect of that. But anyway, we're a few hours away. We get up there a lot. It's a great family event. Get the family together and away from all of their distractions, and really focus on just being together.
We have similar lifestyles. My oldest is 25 and is a Catholic school teacher here locally, and then my youngest is 11.
Great.
And so I'm a couple years behind you on that, but I get the experience. We have everything from being, in close quarters now with this whole COVID thing. We're reconnecting right. As to what life was like a long time ago when we were all together, and very interesting. Very interesting.
It is. Yeah, it is very interesting. Most of our kids are adults now, so the house feels a little more crowded right now than it normally does. Plus, we have to throw we've got 2 grandkids in the mix too, and so my oldest is actually with us, and is just in process of transitioning from the DC area back to California, where her husband has taken a new position. So we've got a house full. It's a lot of fun, but I've got my whole crew, all but one, home right now, and 2
Congratulations.
grandkids. So yeah, it's a fun time.
So shift gears here a little bit. I like to ask people some defining moments in their life. One of the things that is very interesting to me is that you got married somewhat earlier in your life, and then you made the transition from insurance defense work to being a plaintiff's lawyer and representing injured people.
Mm-hmm.
And then in your 30s you decided to become this triathlete. So I'm looking at these things, and I'm trying to figure out what makes this guy tick. So why don't you tell us about some personal moments that were defining moments for you.
Oh boy. Well, one of those, became, it became very apparent to me that I just wasn't cut out to be an insurance defense litigator. About 7 years into that practice, while it was very rewarding and challenging, and I worked with great people, I found myself really starting to regret taking on these victims and challenging them and questioning them on their decision-making process medically, and trying to delve into their history to shore up, misinformation or negative information. I just ethically did not feel good about that. So I remember sitting across the table from a quadriplegic in a very serious medical malpractice case, and taking her deposition. And deep down in my gut, I just knew, it just didn't feel right. It just wasn't fair to her. She was victimized by a physician, and now she was being victimized by an attorney, and it just wasn't right. So that was certainly a defining moment when I knew I needed to transition my practice and really do a 180 and turn around and start focusing on serving the victims. So that was a big moment. That was late in my my insurance defense career in Phoenix, and really helped motivate me to start laying the foundation when I got back to Colorado to set up my own practice and represent victims. So that's kind of a professional, a big moment for me. And then, personally, I've always, like I said, loved to compete. I love the challenge of endurance events, and just the personal challenge, not so much the competition with others, but just challenging yourself to do the very best you can. And again, laying the foundation and the groundwork to do that has always been something that I've enjoyed. And I was really deep into ultra running, actually, at the time in my early 30s, and running some crazy races through the mountains of Colorado and Utah and Wyoming, and just loved it. But it was very hard on the body, and I sustained a pretty serious Achilles injury, and was forced into the swimming pool because I couldn't run, and then on the bike, and two things that I really wasn't familiar with at all, other than some mountain biking. And so I learned I was kind of good at it, and that kind of started the triathlon career in my late 30s. And I've always felt like I had a leg up on some of the athletes my age who had been competing for 10, 15, 20 years, and were kind of, peaking or maxing out in their careers. And I felt really fresh and young. I still feel that way. I feel like I'm 55, but I feel like I'm going on 35. And so that was a really good moment, because it helped me get healthy and really balanced out my training. And then, it's kind of taken off from there. I've just continued to try to improve, just like I do on my law practice every day. It's like, what can I do to get a little bit better? Even at 55, I think there's still physically areas that you can improve upon, and with the right training and self-discipline, and just putting good habits in place, I think you can really change the direction of your life if you're disciplined enough to keep those habits in place. And even on the days like this morning, it's 28 degrees and blustery cold outside, but I'm running this morning. That's what I do. And so I'm out there, probably not as cold as Chicago. We got a little sunshine here, but some of those morning runs are a little rough, but still, I just still love it. And I still think there are ways to improve. So yeah, that's kind of the evolution of my career and my world in triathlon.
Tell me, just in general, like how many in a week, how many miles will you run? How many miles will you bike, and how long will you swim in a week?
Yeah, kind of my base weekly training is really not that bad. It's probably 8 to 10 hours of training, and that's comprised of 5 to 10,000 meters in the pool, which I'm not doing right now with the pools closed, and then 2 to 3 hours of strength training, 2 to 3 hours of yoga and Pilates, and then I'm not in a heavy I guess, race training mode right now because, unfortunately our races are in limbo right now. So I always have Kona in the back of my mind, and I know that's 6 months away, but, you start gearing up for that early. So my base, my running right now is probably in the 30 to 40 miles per week range, pretty light, for a Ironman. And then, cycling, I'm doing, 4 to 6 hours on the bike, primarily on my trainer, in my home gym. So not a lot of volume right now. And I'd never really been a volume guy. There's some coaches that were real proponents of, like Mark Allen, just big proponents of heavy, high volume. But I think as we age, you've got to kind of pick and choose, and you've got to be careful because you don't want to, the biggest challenge of Ironman as you age is really just getting to the starting line healthy. And I see so many athletes, they look great in training and they're just banking all of this training volume and mileage, and they're crushing it. And then race comes around and they're flat, they're overtrained, they're injured, they've got some nagging injury, and they don't perform as well. So I kind of go into it with a real minimalist approach. And I know what I need now to get to the start line healthy and to perform relatively well. So pretty light volume right now. When I get closer to a race, this fall, I will certainly ramp it up, and the mileage and the time will jump up, but not a lot. I mean, maybe 15 hours a week to train. And you hear and you can read out there that most of these Ironman athletes supposedly are training, 20 to 30 hours a week, which is, then it becomes a job, and I don't want it to be that. I really want to stay balanced.
That's great. So one of the things that it sounds to me like the number one thing that you're trying to do is avoid injury, huh?
That's been the challenge. I've been a rather injury prone kid and adult, and it's self-inflicted. So I don't ever complain about it. I never go home and complain to my wife, that's for sure, or anybody else. I just kind of take it on the chin and go with it and figure out ways to solve it. So yeah, I've spent a few bucks on you name it, all kinds of physical therapy and dry needling and lots of treatment, a few surgeries. Unfortunately, I've had about a half dozen knee surgeries and a couple other little ailments, but yeah, everything seems to always come together at the right time. I've never not finished an Ironman, which is probably, I'm more proud of that than the world ranking. There are it's a tough long day, a lot of dark moments, and that's probably my proudest thing is that I've been able to put my body into a condition and a position to perform on that day, and never not finished.
Do you coach yourself, Bryan?
I do. I have a number of resources in Northern Colorado, and have worked off and on with some coaches in Boulder, former professionals that are very generous in sharing information and training ideas. But I would say, yeah, I've always been self-coached with a little bit of guidance from
that's great.
Some
hey,
pros.
So I was looking at a kind of a soft spot in my viewpoint for you. That one of the charities that you have a soft spot for too is for St. Joseph's church and school.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Sure. When we moved back to Colorado, we enrolled our children in St. Joseph's Catholic School, and our four youngest have gone all the way through. Unfortunately, it's only K through 8 now, and they're in the process of starting a high school actually this fall, finally, but a little late for us. But great community, great resources, great people. And we've been fully supportive of the church and the school since day one. I've tried to volunteer my time. My wife is there almost on a daily basis with the 8th grade. Our last child is kind of graduating this year from St. Joe's, but I've been active there as a coach and certainly trying to support everything that they're doing. And it's been a great community to be a part of, and great to know that our kids are getting good information. And it's a challenge with everything out there, and in the public school system here to just to make sure your children are being cared for and educated.
One of the things I was looking at, which would kind of hit me, was that it must have been some sort of raffle or something. And did you make an electric bike?
Oh, that was a little bit of a misnomer. I purchased a really nice high-end bike from a company in California. It came to me in a box, which I didn't know they were going to do that. So I had to build it. I didn't make it. I don't have those skills. I don't have the electrical skills to wire a bike, but I did have to build it. I can build bikes, but it wasn't self-made. It's developed by a company on the West Coast that actually is more well known for paddle boards. Actually, Tower paddle boards is their big seller, but they do make a really cool electric bike, and e-bikes. I don't know how big they are in Chicago, but they are exploding out here, and the e-scooters are huge, of course. So I thought that would be a good auction item, and raised a bunch of money for the school that night, and that was one of the top auction items.
We're getting near the end here. Unfortunately, I could talk to you for a long, long time, because it's fascinating to me how a guy can do all this stuff that you do, run a law firm, be the #1 triathlete in the world, and be a father of 6, and do all these different things. And it's just mind blowing here. But I want to talk to you about when you sat down with your wife and talked to her about starting your own law firm. Because typically the way it works, I remember having this discussion like it was yesterday with my wife, Michelle, and I sat down with her and I said, listen, we're going to, this is what I want to do, but I can't do this without you, because there's a lot of risk. There's a lot of, you don't really take that many clients with you when you leave an insurance defense firm. You're basically starting from square one. Can you tell me about that experience, and how that happened, and then how it grew to where it is today?
Yeah, when I look back, I can't believe my wife let me do that. It was quite a risk. We were it was in the fall of 2001, and so there was a lot going on, as you know, right then. And the economy was pretty shaky, and we were due with our 5th child about within a few weeks of me opening the firm. We had just purchased a new home, so a lot of balls in the air, but I knew I had such a great foundation at home that my wife was going to give me the time and ability to really focus on developing a good practice. And I did start from ground one. I had a handful of clients. Actually, Joe, I was doing I knew I wanted to be an injury lawyer and help victims, but I was taking anything just to keep the lights on the first year. So from estate planning to divorce work to adoptions to a couple criminal defense cases, I just jumped in and knew I had to put food on the table. And having almost 5 little ones at home, that's a huge motivator. So I quickly was able to shift the focus after a year into really a personal injury focus. I developed enough relationships. I was taking every old attorney out, every attorney in town out to lunch and just saying, hey, let me take your cases. I know you don't like to litigate. I'll go try your cases. Whatever you need me to do. If you think they're dogs, let me look at them and see if I can help these folks. And so I was really just hitting it from all aspects. And I had a guy, very, very good lawyer in Denver who this was kind of a real boost initially because I didn't have a lot of exposure here and people didn't know me, but he had decided he didn't want the back cover of the phone book. That's how old I am. But I snatched up that back cover on the phone book locally. And, that certainly helped get the phones ringing initially, and then just doing, good work with clients and treating every client like family, and word
So now,
spreads.
so tell
That
me,
really,
it's almost 20 years. You're gonna have your 20-year, anniversary here on this law firm in 2021. Tell me what type of enterprise you have now.
yeah. Yeah, I've tried to, like you, Joe, we only want to take meritorious cases. So we are very selective. So I'm not trying to outgun anybody in Denver and just capture a bunch of cases and make a bunch of money. That's not our focus. But we have grown significantly from me and an assistant to, I have 3 very skilled, experienced attorneys that work for me now, and we have 5 legal assistants. We manage a pretty small caseload because we really want to like I said, give our clients 100% top-notch service from start to finish. So the caseload is, we carry anywhere in the range of 100 to 150 cases, but again, we remain, very selective. We don't want to mislead people and get them involved in something that we can't help them with. So I've got, like I said, great staff, and we're just focused on that client service aspect, and it's paid off, and we're able to be very proactive. So we're not getting the big verdicts like you guys get, Joe, but we put cases in a position where the insurance company feels like this is a really good case. These guys are serious. They're going to take this to trial if we don't make them a good offer, and we're getting good offers. So I really see that as a plus for the clients because, Joe, as you talk to any client, I mean, going through a trial is win or lose. It's a very difficult experience for people, and it's very traumatic, and they've already been through trauma. So we want to try to avoid, as much ongoing trauma as we can. And that's why we're very proactive and have been successful in positioning cases in a manner to get great offers.
I guarantee you that no insurance company is going to want to be facing down the #1 ranked Ironman all world. And let me tell you, so this is the fun part. So we'll close this up, but
buddy,
I did a little more research here. Here's some great pre-race music for Bryan. He likes, and I've never heard of some of these things. So this guy is he's like a 20-year-old. It's Grizz, Odessa, Macklemore, 21 Pilots, Eminem, Radiohead, yes, Pearl Jam, and Alice in Chains. So you must get pretty psyched up before these races.
Oh man, I do. That's the great thing about having teenagers and kids in college. You keep up to date on all the best music. So yeah, I go to the concerts with them too. We hit up Red Rocks, and I'm the oldest guy in the crowd, but I don't care.
Well, that's great. Now listen,
Keeps me young.
Again, I want to. Yeah. I don't think I've seen a better lawyer's website than VanMeveren Law Group, which is VanMeverenLaw.com, and then his social media stuff is fantastic. I was looking at a video that his daughter put together of his last Kona, and it was just, I don't know, man. To me, this stuff is good stuff. When there's Renaissance men in the world like Bryan VanMeveren, I just feel good. I mean, he's good at sports, community. He's a great lawyer. He's working with great people. He's married 30 years, 6 kids. Boy, I tell you, I feel inadequate, but I still want to interview you. No. So you have to come back and tell us of your stories. I know that your long-term goal is Ironman Hawaii at age 70. Heck, let's go to 80, buddy.
That's right. Hey, why not?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I have to do a marathon first, and then if I finish a marathon, then I'll figure out a way to make it up there. To close it out, my alma mater is this little Catholic school up in Portland, Oregon called University of, and they happen to be right. I think one of the top 5 running programs in the country now. When we were there were some great coaches there, great athletes, some of my best friends, but we were nowhere near what these cats are doing now. I mean, it's absolutely crazy with this little town, but the one that's the thorn in their side is that Northern Arizona group. Those guys I mean, perennial
Right.
national
Yep.
champions. And
They're
you know any of
runners.
those guys?
I don't know any of those guys. I know a lot of great runners from around the world. Love to train. It's a great training community. There are a lot of runners there, and plus you're training at 7,000 feet, so you're getting a
The
massive
unfair,
advantage when you go to
completely
these other
unfair. And so that they should be barred.
places.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree with you on
it's
that.
not fair.
But to close us out,
That's right. Yeah.
When Bryan and I met in Atlanta, Georgia, at a guy that Bryan traveled across the country to see, and that guy was this guy named David Goggins. And so,
Right.
listen, when I saw David Goggins speak in Atlanta about a year and a half ago, I was pretty much blown away. I bought his book. I gave out, a bunch of his books
Right.
because I think the guy is amazing. Follow him on social media if you can. The folks that are listening to this, I know Bryan's a big fan, because of,
Yes.
yeah. And so,
Great inspiration.
anyway, Bryan, would you come back and sometime?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd love to give you a recap after Kona this fall, and love to reconnect with you. Hopefully see you this
Great.
fall as
Well,
well.
thank you so much,
Atlanta
Bryan,
again.
and get back to
Okay.
your training, and make sure that you say thank you to your wife every morning, because you know what, without her saying
Yes.
that she would take care of those 6 beautiful kids of yours and your grandkids, you would be nothing.
Right.
All right, buddy.
You're
We'll talk
absolutely
soon.
right, Joe. Thanks so much for having me, Joe.
Thank you for listening to the opening statement with Joe Shannon. You can find us on the internet at shannonlawgroup.com or telephone our office at 312-578-9501. Have a terrific day.